The colony ship had brought them to Verdant 3 years ago. Was only 4 then. Now she was 7 and she barely remembered anything else. The red dust, the cold winds, the plastic walls of their small home at the edge of the settlement, this was her whole world. She lived with her grandmother in a that was too small and too old. The walls made strange sounds at night. The heating system worked only half the time, but made it feel like home. She cooked rice in the tiny kitchen. She told stories about Earth, a blue and green planet that had never seen. She braided its hair every morning and kissed her forehead every night. The colony was not doing well, was young, but she understood that much. The adults spoke in worried voices. The crops were dying. The machines that were supposed to make the air breathable kept breaking down. Every week there was another meeting where people shouted at each other, but did not think about these things. She was 7. She thought about playing, about the small purple flowers that sometimes grew near the water tanks, about the clouds that looked like animals. One afternoon, while her grandmother was resting, decided to explore. She was not supposed to go beyond the safety markers. The orange poles with the blinking lights showed where the safe area ended, but had always been curious. Too curious, her grandmother said. She walked past the markers, into the rocky area where no one went. The ground here was hard and red. Strange rock formations rose up like the fingers of giants. The wind was stronger here, colder, and it made a sound like singing. Climbed over the small rocks, her boots slipping on the dust. She pretended she was an explorer, the first human to ever walk on this land. In a way, she was. That was when she saw it. Among the red and brown rocks there was one that was different. It was black, completely black, like the night sky without stars. It was smooth and oval, about the size of her 2 fists put together, and when she reached down to touch it, she felt something strange. It was warm. Everything else on this planet was cold. The rocks were cold. The ground was cold. Even inside their home, often wore 2 sweaters. But this black stone was warm, like it had been sitting in the sun, even though the sky was cloudy and gray. Picked it up carefully. It was heavier than she expected. She held it close to her chest and felt its warmth spread through her thin jacket. She knew immediately that it was special. Ran home, holding the stone tight. Her grandmother was awake now, sitting by the window and looking at the failing garden outside. The plants they had tried to grow were brown and bent. Nothing wanted to live on this planet. Grandma Look said, holding up the stone, "I found a seed." Looked at the black oval in her granddaughter's hands. It was clearly a stone. Any adult could see that. It had no features of a seed, no shell, no texture, nothing to suggest life inside. But saw something else. She saw a little girl with bright eyes and dirty cheeks, holding something precious. She saw hope in a place where hope was hard to find. "That is a very nice seed," said softly. "What will you do with it?" "I will plant it," said. "I will make it grow." Nodded slowly. The colony had very little soil. What they had was carefully measured and used only for food crops. But she went to the small storage area and found an old pot, cracked on one side. She filled it with a handful of soil, knowing that this soil could have grown vegetables, could have fed someone. But some things were more important than vegetables. Placed the stone in the pot. She pushed it down gently, leaving just the top visible. Then she got a cup of water. Water was also precious here, and poured it slowly over the soil. The stone sat there, black and silent. "Grow big and strong," whispered. From that day on, watered her stone every morning. She woke up before her grandmother, filled a small cup, and poured it carefully into the pot. She talked to the stone while she did this. She told it about her dreams. She told it about the boy named who pulled her hair at school. She told it about the stories her grandmother shared, about oceans and forests and animals called dogs that were loyal friends. The other children in the colony found out about stone. They laughed at her. "Stupid," they said. "She thinks a rock will grow. She waters a rock like a baby." cried sometimes. She asked her grandmother if she was stupid. Held her close. No, my little one, you are not stupid. You are kind. You care for something that cannot care for you back. That is not stupidity, that is love. High above the colony, hidden in the dark space between stars, the watched. They were beings of pure energy, ancient beyond human understanding. They had observed 1,000 species rise and fall. They found humans mildly interesting, emotional, chaotic, short-lived creatures who had only recently learned to travel between stars. One of their observers noted the child's behavior in a report. The human child engages in repetitive ritual behavior with a non-responsive object. Possible cognitive deficiency. Recommend continued observation. They did not understand what they were seeing. They did not know that inside that black stone, something was listening. Something very, very old. And for the first time in 40,000 years, it felt warmth. 6 months passed on Verdant 7. The seasons did not change much on this world. It was always cold, always windy, always struggling. But time moved forward anyway. The colony's problems grew worse. The machines that cleaned the air broke down twice. Food supplies ran low. There was talk of evacuation, of leaving this failed world and returning to the crowded stations where they had started. The adults walked around with heavy faces. Some families had already left on the supply ships that came every few months. But instead, this was their home now. They had nowhere else to go. Through all of this continued her morning ritual. Every day, without fail, she watered her stone. The other children had stopped laughing at her. Now they just ignored her, which was somehow worse. Was the strange girl who talked to rocks. No one wanted to play with her. But she had her stone, and her grandmother, that was enough. One night could not sleep. The wind outside was loud, shaking the walls of their small home. She got up quietly and went to the window where her pot sat. The stone was there, as always, black and smooth and silent. Put her hand on it, it was warm as always. But tonight it felt different somehow. Warmer, almost like it was breathing. "Are you lonely?" Whispered. "I am lonely too sometimes, but I have Grandma, and I have you, so it is okay." She stayed there for a long time, her small hand on the stone, until she fell asleep with her head against the window. Far above, in their ship that hung invisible in the sky, the observers noticed something unusual in their readings. Energy signature detected, one of them reported. Source unknown. Location, the human settlement, Sector 7. They scanned again. The readings were strange. There was something in the colony that was giving off energy, not electrical, not thermal, but something else. Something their instruments had never seen before. Increase observation level, the lead observer ordered. Days passed. The energy readings grew stronger. They analyzed the data again and again, running it through databases that contained information from across the galaxy. They compared it to every known energy source, every species, every technology. And then they found a match. The reaction in the ship was immediate. Lights flashed. Communications opened to their home world. For the first time in centuries, the calm, logical showed something close to panic. The energy signature matched records from 40,000 years ago, records from a species called the. There were legends. They were cosmic dragons, beings of living fire who could fly through space without ships, who could create stars and destroy them. They had seeded life across 100 galaxies. They were the oldest and most powerful beings the universe had ever known. And they were extinct, destroyed in a war with an enemy called the Void Collective. For 40,000 years, not a single had been seen. Their eggs, called dormants, had been found scattered across the galaxy, cold, dead, never hatching. They had found dozens of these dormants over the centuries. They had studied them, probed them, tried everything to wake them. Nothing worked. They were gone forever. Until now. The energy source was traced to a small at the edge of the human settlement. More specifically, to a cracked pot sitting by a window. Inside that pot was what appeared to be a black stone. It was not a stone. It was an egg, and it was waking up. The High Council was called into session. Messages went out to every major species in the galaxy. All of them were told, and Dormant had activated for the first time in 40,000 years. And it had happened on a tiny human colony, in the care of a 7-year-old girl. The debates began immediately. How was this possible? They had tried everything to wake these eggs. They had used the most advanced technology in existence. They had studied the dormants for thousands of years. What had the human child done differently? The answer, when they found it, made no sense to them. She had watered it, she had talked to it. She had treated it with kindness day after day, expecting nothing in return. The scientists looked at the data. They looked at each other. This was not logical. This was not scientific. How could simple affection succeed where all their technology had failed? But the readings did not lie. The egg was waking. Something inside it was growing, responding, becoming alive. Back on the planet's surface, noticed that her stone felt different, warmer than before. Sometimes, late at night, she thought she could hear something. A sound like a heartbeat, soft and slow, coming from inside the black shell. "Grandma," she said one morning, "I think my seed is growing." Came to look. She put her old hand on the stone and felt the warmth. She heard the faint sound, like something moving deep inside. She had lived long enough to know when something impossible was happening. "Yes, little one," she said, her voice shaking just a little. "I think you are right." The galaxy was coming to Verdant 7. Ships were being prepared. The most powerful beings in existence were turning their attention to this small, cold, failing colony. All because a lonely little girl had refused to give up on a stone. The first ship arrived on a Tuesday. Remembered because Tuesday was soup day in the colony cafeteria, and she liked soup day. She was walking home from school when she saw it. A ship made of crystal, shining like ice in the weak sunlight. It hung above the settlement, silent and huge, blocking out half the sky. People stood in the streets, looking up with their mouths open. Had never seen a ship like this. The human ships were gray and metal, covered in wires and pipes. This ship was beautiful, like something from a dream. More ships came that week. A black warship covered in sharp edges, carrying the giant creatures with scales like armor and teeth like knives. A golden trading vessel belonging to the small beings with too many eyes and voices like music. Smaller ships followed, carrying scientists and diplomats and warriors from species that humans had never met before. The colony of 300 people suddenly had 3,000 visitors. Director was the leader of the colony. He was a tired man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had taken this job because he wanted a quiet life, a place to grow old peacefully away from the busy center of human space. Now he found himself sitting in meetings with beings who could destroy his entire world with a thought. The ambassador was called. It had no body that could see, just a shape of light that changed color when it spoke. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "The child must give us the egg," said. "This matter is too important for humans to handle. You are a young species. You do not understand what you have found." Wiped sweat from his forehead. "With respect, the egg belongs to the girl who found it. Our laws say that." "Your laws mean nothing," the general interrupted. "His name was, and he was twice as tall as any human. When he moved, his scales made a sound like scraping metal. We are talking about a being that could burn your entire planet to ash. This is not a matter for children and farmers." The meetings went on for days. The aliens argued with each other as much as with the humans. They wanted to study the egg. They wanted to raise the dragon as a weapon. They wanted to sell it to the highest bidder. Everyone had a plan, and none of those plans included a 7-year-old girl. Finally, they demanded to see her. Stood in the colony's largest room, surrounded by beings from across the stars. She wore her cleanest dress, a blue one with small flowers that her grandmother had made. Her hair was braided neatly. She held her grandmother's hand tightly. The aliens looked down at her. To them she was tiny, fragile, temporary. Humans lived such short lives and their children were even more delicate. Child said, "It's light turning a soft blue. Do you understand what you have found? That stone in your room is not a stone. It is the egg of a being older than your species, older than most stars. It is valuable beyond anything you can imagine." Looked up at the swirling light. She was scared, but she did not show it. Her grandmother had taught her to be brave. "It is not a stone," she said. "I know it is my friend." The general laughed, a harsh sound that hurts ears. "Your friend, it is a weapon, it is power, it does not need friends." "Then why was it alone for so long?" asked. The room went quiet. "If it did not need friends," continued, her voice small but steady, "why did it only wake up when I talked to it? You had other eggs. You tried to wake them. They did not wake up for you." His laughter stopped. His yellow eyes narrowed. "The child is saying that we failed," one of them said. "It is saying that it succeeded where we could not." "That is impossible," said. "We used every technology, every method known to science. A child pouring water on a rock cannot." "But it did," said. She stepped forward, her old body straight and strong. She looked at the aliens without fear. "You tried machines and science. My granddaughter tried love. Maybe that is what the egg was waiting for." The aliens exchanged looks. This was not logical. This was not how the universe worked. Power came from technology, from strength, from knowledge, not from the feelings of a small human child. "We will take the egg," said finally. He took a step toward. "We will study it properly. The child will be compensated." Moved in front of her granddaughter. "You will not touch her. You will not take anything." His hand moved to his weapon. "Do you think you can stop me, old woman?" Did not move. "No, but I think you are afraid." The general froze. "What did you say?" "You are afraid," repeated, "all of you. You are afraid of what will happen when that egg hatches, and bonded to anger might destroy you, and bonded to greed might become your enemy. But in bonded to love," she looked down at her granddaughter, "and bonded to love might become something wonderful, and you are too afraid to find out." The room was silent. No one moved. And somewhere, in a small pot by a window at the edge of the colony, a crack appeared in the black shell. After the meeting, no one tried to take the egg. His words had struck something deep in the aliens. They remembered the old stories about not just their power, but their rage. When they were angry, stars died. When they were betrayed, whole civilizations vanished. The ancient records showed what happened to those who made enemies of the cosmic dragons. No one wanted to be the one who angered a newborn by harming the first being it had ever loved. So they waited, they watched. Ships hung in the sky like patient birds. Scientists set up equipment around the colony, measuring everything they could. Diplomats argued in endless meetings about what would happen after the hatching. Warriors kept their weapons ready just in case. And continued her routine. Every morning she woke up early. She filled her small cup with water. She went to her window and poured it carefully over the soil. She talked to the egg just like she always had. The crack in the shell grew larger each day. New cracks appeared, spreading across the black surface like rivers on a map. A soft light began to glow from inside, purple and blue, like the colors of a sunset on a world had never seen. The aliens watched their instruments with growing excitement. The energy readings were incredible. Whatever was inside that egg was more powerful than anything they had ever measured. Some of them dreamed of controlling that power. Others feared it. Just thought it was beautiful. One evening, a scientist came to visit her. It called itself Myra, and its light was softer than the others, more gentle. Unlike the ambassadors and generals, Myra seemed genuinely curious about. "Child," Myra said, floating beside her at the window, "may I ask you something?" Nodded okay. Why did you keep watering the stone? You must have known it would not grow. Stones do not grow. Your species understands this. Thought about the question. She was only 7, but she thought about things carefully, the way her grandmother had taught her. I did not know it would not grow, she said finally. Everyone said it was just a rock, but it was warm. It felt different. And even if it never grew, she paused, finding the right words. Even if nothing ever happened, I liked taking care of it. It made me feel less alone. Myra's light flickered, changing colors in ways did not understand. You were kind to something that could not be kind back to you. Shrugged, is that strange? To us, yes. Myra floated closer to the cracked egg. We only give attention to things that can give something back. We make deals. We trade. We calculate. The idea of caring for something with no return, it is not logical. Grandma says the best things in life are not logical, said. She says love is like that. You cannot measure it. You cannot trade it. You just give it. Myra was silent for a long time. The day of the hatching came without warning. Was eating breakfast when she heard it, a sound like breaking glass but softer. She ran to her window. The egg was shaking. The cracks were spreading faster now, pieces of black shell falling away to reveal light underneath. Grandma called. Grandma, it is happening. Came as quickly as her old legs could carry her. She stood beside her granddaughter, one hand on shoulder, watching. Outside, alarms began to sound. The alien ships detected the energy spike. In moments, the sky was full of activity, ships moving into position, weapons powering up, shields activating. The general ordered his warriors to surround the colony. The prepared containment fields. Everyone was ready for something terrible. Ignored all of it, she watched her egg. The shell fell away piece by piece. The light inside grew brighter, filling the small room with purple and blue. Had to close her eyes, but only for a moment. When she opened them, she saw the dragon. It was small. That was the first thing she noticed. All the stories talked about as massive creatures, bigger than ships, able to swallow moons. But this one was tiny, no bigger than the cat that had lived in the colony before it ran away. Its scales were dark, shifting between black and deep violet. Its eyes were enormous, full of swirling lights like tiny galaxies. Wings made of something that looked like thin glass folded against its back. It looked at the broken shell around it. It looked at the window where alien ships hung in the sky, their weapons pointed at this very room. It looked at, standing still and quiet. Then it looked at, and it made a soft sound like a kitten, like a question. Hello, whispered. Her voice was shaking. Tears were rolling down her cheeks, but she did not know why. I have been waiting for you. The dragon blinked its galaxy eyes. It tilted its head to one side. Then slowly, carefully, it climbed out of the broken pot. It walked across the windowsill on legs that were still weak. It reached and climbed into her lap, curling up like it had always belonged there. It was warm, warmer than the egg had ever been. It began to purr. Outside, the aliens lowered their weapons. The containment fields powered down. The general stood frozen, his mouth open. The scientists stared at their instruments, which showed energy readings that made no sense. A cosmic dragon, a being of ancient and terrible power, had just chosen a human child as its family. What do we do now? Someone asked in the silence that followed. Smiled, her old face full of a joy that she had not felt in years. We let them rest, she said. They have a lot of growing up to do together. They named her, which meant star in the old language. It was who suggested the name and agreed immediately. It was perfect. In the weeks after the hatching grew quickly, not as fast as the aliens expected. They had predicted the dragon would reach full size within months, but steadily. By the end of the first week, she was the size of a dog. By the end of the first month, she was as big as a small horse. Her wings unfolded and learned to carry her. Her scales hardened into something that no weapon could scratch. Her eyes, still full of swirling galaxies, watched everything with ancient wisdom. But she never left side. The sent their greatest minds to study. The dragon tolerated them, but only when was present. If left the room, would stop responding to questions and tests. She would simply wait, quiet and still, until her human returned. They offered warriors to serve the dragon. They brought gifts, rare metals, powerful weapons, treasures from conquered worlds. Ignored all of it. She preferred the simple meals that cooked, the games that invented, the quiet evenings when the three of them sat together and watched the strange stars of Verdant 7. They offered money, incredible amounts of money. They wanted to make deals, to form partnerships, to use this power for profit. Did not even look at them. Years passed, grew from a child into a young woman. She was 19 now, tall and strong, with the same kind eyes she had always had. She had become a teacher in the colony, helping other children learn about the galaxy they lived in. The colony itself had changed too. It was no longer a struggling settlement on a dying world. The aliens had brought technology and resources. The terraforming finally worked. Plants grew. The air became breathable. People stopped talking about leaving. Had grown as well. She was the size of a small ship now, her wings able to carry her into space itself. Sometimes she flew among the stars, disappearing for days at a time, exploring the universe that had been waiting for her for 40,000 years. But she always came back. She always returned to the small at the edge of the settlement, where still lived with her grandmother. One day, the Galactic Council requested a formal meeting. Representatives from every major species gathered on Verdant 7, not in a cold meeting room, but in the garden that and had planted together. Flowers grew there now, colors that had never existed on this planet before. It was beautiful. Sat in the center of the garden, her massive form curled around the spot where her egg had once been buried. Sat beside her, leaning against the dragon's warm scales, just as she had done since she was 7 years old. The Prime spoke first. Its light was bright white, the color of authority. Great, it said, its voice carrying across the garden. We have waited for this moment for 40,000 years. Your kind once ruled the stars. You created life across countless worlds. We have so many questions. We need to understand why you went away, why you hid, why you waited. Raised her great head. Her voice, when she spoke, was unlike anything the aliens had heard before. It was like thunder and music, like wind and fire, like the sound of stars being born. It echoed not in the air but in the minds of everyone present. The old ones told us to wait, said. We were tired. We had lived for so long, done so much. We had created and destroyed. We had been and feared, but we had forgotten something important. So we made ourselves into eggs and we waited for someone to remind us. Remind you of what? The Prime asked. Of why existence matters, answered. She looked down at her galaxy, eyes soft with something that looked very much like love. We had power. We had knowledge. We had time beyond counting. But we had lost the simplest truth of all. What truth? The general demanded. He was old now too, his scales gray with age but still proud and fierce. That the smallest acts of kindness are worth more than the greatest displays of power. His voice grew gentler. That a child watering a stone, day after day, hopping for something to grow, contains more wisdom than all the councils of the galaxy. That patience and love are not weaknesses. They are the very forces that make the universe worth living in. The garden was silent. The most powerful beings in existence stood still, listening to words that seemed too simple to be true. The studied you for thousands of years continued. They tried every technology to wake us. They offered war and glory. They offered wealth. None of it worked. None of it could work, because we were not waiting for power or knowledge or riches. We were waiting for someone who would love us before we could love them back. Someone who would give with no hope of receiving. Someone irrational and stubborn and full of hope. She spread her wings, casting shadows that covered the entire garden. We were waiting for humanity. More were waking now. Across the galaxy, the dormants that had slept for 40,000 years were beginning to stir. Humans had found other eggs, and they were treating them the same way had, with patience and kindness and love. The dragons were coming back, and they were bonding with a species that the rest of the galaxy had dismissed as young and foolish. They had ruled the stars through logic and calculation. They had conquered through strength. They had prospered through trade. But the next age of the galaxy would be different. Stood up, she was not a leader. She was not a warrior or a scientist or a diplomat. She was just a woman who had once been a lonely girl, watering a stone because she wanted something to love. But when she spoke, the galaxy listened. "We are not the strongest species," she said. "We do not live the longest. We do not have the best technology or the most ancient wisdom, but we have something that you forgot along the way. We hope even when hope makes no sense. We love even when love is not returned. We believe in things we cannot see." She looked at the dragon who had been her friend for 12 years, who would be her friend for centuries to come. "You wanted to know what humanity could teach the stars," said. "That is what we teach. That is who we are." The prime dimmed its light, a sign of deep respect. And what happens now? Rumbled a sound like distant thunder, like a volcano dreaming. "Now," she said, "we grow together, all of us. We learn from each other. We build something new." Her tail curled around, warm and protective. "And we never forget," the dragon added, "that the greatest miracles begin with the smallest acts of faith." In the garden, surrounded by flowers that should not exist on this cold world, the galaxy began a new chapter. And somewhere in the universe's endless dark, other stones were waiting to be found. Waiting for someone foolish enough to love them.